We had talked about that, so if we could, tell me what are the changes that are going to be? Martha?
Chair, I move that we, first of all, have a short closed session right now before the rest of the meeting, and then we'll have a longer closed session at the end of our meeting so that everybody doesn't have to stay for a long time. And then secondly, we want to take off the item on tab, what is that?
E.
D?
ED.
BD.
ED.
Oh, tab D.
Tab E.
No,
Tab E, number D.
number E. Where is E? Oh, that's the right. No, that's not E.
Tab
It's-
ED.
ED.
E is in Edward, D is in dog.
Well, okay, so I'm not seeing that, but basically it's the agenda to talk about the road.
Right. Reconsider and approval of alignment of Southeast Connector Road.
Right.
And so we're taking that off, we're tabling that on the agenda.
That's correct.
Okay, are there any other things of adjusting the agenda? Kathy?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make sure that at some point in the agenda, we had the ability to do an informational announcement about our board member and our selection process for that. It's not included on the agenda, but I hope that we could have just an quick informational at the
Okay,
end.
so at the end of the agenda, there is board reports and discussion, so maybe at that time, I know that Martha is going to be doing something on their foundation, and so at that time, you can also do an information thing, or is that appropriate?
If you're,
Sure.
I'm fine to do that.
Okay. All right. Okay, so before we do anything else, is that all right with everyone, or do we need to do any reports first or anything? Because we're planning on actually a short executive board meeting, correct? Or just real quick.
I think that's
Well,
what I
let me
moved
move the agenda, approve the agenda
as
as amended.
amended. Second.
So,
I was just going to ask if the people, like there's Rebecca Estrada, the people that are the employees, can you guys stay until after this, or should we go ahead and do?
okay.
Okay. Just wanted to double check.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Have some coffee or tea.
Yeah.
No donuts.
Okay.
All right, do we have a motion to go into executive
A
session?
second.
I move we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing
Personnel.
personnel.
Right, whatever
Is that all we're discussing?
Yes, limited personnel matters.
Yes, okay.
right, okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll be out in a little bit. Bueno, de aquí para adelante vamos a hacer la junta totalmente en español. Sorry. It's a Hispanic joke. All right, so we're going to go into tab A and President's Report, Awards and Presentations. Randy?
We're going to start off tonight with a report and update on our Title V program. And so here tonight we have Dr. Cheryl Fields and Heidi Weingard. So, come on up.
Chair Abeta, did I say it right? Okay, I was practicing. Members of the board and President Grissom, thank you for the opportunity to share some of the information related to the Title V program and really the focus on success that we've been working on through the grant. And it really has afforded us an opportunity to do a lot of different things that we're seeing are making a difference for our students. And one of the things when we got the grant and like it was moved over to me, like one of the things that I wanted to see was like as we saw those effective practices, to think about how we institutionalized those things that were making a difference. And so that has been a big focus of the grant from from the very beginning. And I'm really happy to have Heidi Weingart here as our Director of Title V and the first year experience and advising. We've like combined, it's a bang up package for her to be in charge of, but we have somebody who is capable of doing that. So I'm going to turn it over to her for the first part of the presentation.
Thank you for this opportunity to fill you in on what we're doing in Title V. I just started December 16th in this new position, so I'm learning as we go as well. The Title V grant is a $3.2 million grant that is budgeted to be scheduled out over 5 years. As it started in fall of 2010, it's scheduled to finish up October of 2015, so we're kind of in the last 18 months or so of the grant. Its goal is to accelerate Hispanic first-year and low-income student progress, and the reason we qualified for this grant is because more than 25% of our population is Hispanic. Linking and redesign of developmental and core college courses has been one of our biggest projects that we've been working on, where we've seen some of the largest successes as well. And the development of the proactive first-year experience with the advisors, doing some intrusive advising with the students and really being proactive and talking to them and seeing what they need to be successful and get them graduated and into a good job. So the key initiatives that we're working on, and these are our main areas of focus, were the proactive advising that I just mentioned for first-year students, which Cheryl will explain a little bit more, but typically it's calling students in week 3 to see how they're doing, and then again getting them into some group advising or some individual advising in week 8. New student orientation, redesign of college success curriculum, learning community program, linking and integrating courses. We just had Greg Hinckley from Seattle Central Community College come and speak with our faculty regarding the integrated learning. So Emily Stern is going to be working on developing that with the faculty. We're very excited about that. We've chosen the topic of water to work with the campus. And then integrated assignments across the curriculum, which was I was just speaking with. So the guiding principles for the work, 2 of the most important things that we're talking about, the first one is the campus-wide communication to have everybody buy in. So we're really trying to develop some good professional development opportunities for the faculty and the staff as well to get everybody on the same page, which is really focused on student success. That's the main reason why all of us are in the jobs that we're in. Incorporating national best practices, we're seeing what works in other colleges and trying to see if that will work in our college as well. Using data-driven decision-making, so it's not just on a whim. And then really one of the key things that we really want to start looking at is the institutionalization of these effective practices, which is really, really key to make sure that we stay with these successful practices after the grant runs out of money in 2015. So that's really what we're looking at, is what's working best and what can we keep doing. So the mission of the first-year experience is to engage and support first-year students to increase their success at SFCC. And the goals, obviously, is to increase first-year student retention, it's to accelerate student progress through developmental and core courses, improving success rates for students, and increasing credit hour accumulation. And as you'll hear from Cheryl, we've done a good job so far of reaching those.
So I'm going to go ahead.
The grant began in 2010?
Yes, we received notice in October of 2010, and so that first few months, or first 9 months, is kind of getting your staff together and beginning to strategize about how to work on those objectives.
Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about some of the outcomes that we're seeing and where we've really focused our attention. And we knew that we needed to do some things with advising. And so we're really working on that. And the first year, like we have 4 different cohorts. The first year was first time, full-time, traditional. Second year was first time, full-time, non-traditional. Then now we're working with part-time students. Then we'll be working with STEM students. So we have 4 different cohorts that we're working on. So as we began to work with that first cohort, we learned some things, started calling to reach out to them by week 3 because that is a critical time to get with them, and then began to schedule a follow-up appointment. And one of the things that we found during that first year was that the 8-week appointment, which is about midterm, was making a statistical difference in students' being successful. So we began to incorporate that, not just with the cohorts, the Title V cohorts, but with other cohorts, with other students in our population. We also started to do things such as texting students regularly, putting information on Jack, Facebook. I heard they're doing Twitter too. I don't even know. Someone was asking me if I was going to Twitter, and I'm like, no. But we have some of our peer leaders that are helping us do that. And then one of the other things that I think has really helped us with the data is we began to track those advising interactions in Banner. So we could see how many students were coming in, what they were coming in for. And for example, this August, the advisors in the Welcome and Advising Center had 1,174 individual sessions. And that doesn't include those that just kind of drive by. And a lot of the data that we're going to report on, it's not just the Title V. A lot of it is the support, but it's the faculty getting on board with it. It is the folks from IT. It's everybody at the campus. But one of the things we're so proud of is that we are really beginning to see an improvement that students are completing more credits. So if you look at our first-time full-time cohort that started in fall 11, and then compare that to the fall 12 cohort, 44, we have an increase of about 12% that are completing the 24 credits. So there's really good progression. And that has to do with that first year figuring out that 8-week appointment was very important, and then incorporating it to all of the other advisors that work with first-year students, not just with our Title V. We also started new student orientation and changed that to be a more robust program, where students, it's conference style. Everybody goes to an advising session and a financial aid session, but then they have some choices in the other sessions about, where they want to be in 5 years, and that nobody told me session. So it's more fun. We have peer leaders that are involved with that, and what we're seeing is that the students that attend new student orientation, and it's not mandatory right now, but we're hoping to go that direction, have a 9% higher retention rate. They have a higher GPA compared to our control group, 2.86 compared to 2.67 from the fall 2010 control group, and also higher credit accumulation. So those are really good things that we're seeing. We've also redesigned our college success courses, and now they're called FYSS, First Year Student Success. And we have 2 classes, a 3-credit and a 1-credit, and those are mandatory for all new first-time students. And as we do surveys with the students, we offered last year 20 sections of the 3 and the 1-credit. The satisfaction surveys are very high. The 1-credit is for those students that come in at a little bit higher on their reading score, so they're not needing quite as much. And we're seeing some really great results from that. I get so excited I forget to push the button. I should give it to you. But with the spring 2013 students that enrolled in the college success courses of the 1-credit, they have a higher GPA, 2.79 compared to 2.67 of that control group. And that's after a year. It's after 2 semesters. And that there is a higher credit accumulation. And we probably had about 150 students in the spring that went through this. And so we're comparing that to the fall 2010 group of incoming freshmen, which would be a little bit higher, but you can see that there's definitely some progress. The other big thing that we're working on is those linked and accelerated course offerings, and it just better engages students that faculty work together to integrate the assignments, and they really are helping students accelerate. We have 16 linked courses that we offered this fall and spring, and Math 102 linked with Chem 111. Psych 111 linked with English 109. So what we're doing is linking the prerequisite with the college level gateway course so that they're accelerating through those. And then we also have English 109, English 111. And so they do English 109 the first 8 weeks and then English 111 the second 8 weeks. And we're seeing really great success with that. One of the areas that I want to show you is what's happening with math, because we know math is such a challenging area. So the math folks worked to create a combined Math 100 and 101, this Math 100X accelerated, and the graphs are for fall 2011 and spring 2012. We're seeing about a 10% higher completion rate in those linked in that accelerated class compared to the standalones. And then when we looked at the fall 2013, we had 3 sections of the Math 100X. We were seeing about an 11% higher completion rate. The productive grade rate, C's are higher in those courses. So that's really promising for all of those students that struggle with math. And this is the other big picture thing where Title V has played a role, but it's the entire campus community really getting on board with the productive grade rate of our developmental classes being better and improving over, like in comparing fall, I have to look, 11, 12 to 12, 13, that you're seeing some progress there. Some of the other things, just briefly, that Title V has done is assisted with about $100,000 towards construction. Any of you that went to the VA Center, the funds for that construction were from Title V. Also, the first year experience. We've done some things. I think I'm Chris De La Rosa's best friend because we had money that was devoted to technology infrastructure. At least that's what he told me. I think he tells everybody that. Also software for improved communication and generation of reports. And we've been able to do some professional development for faculty and staff that really is making a difference. And one of the best examples is that integrated learning that we did with Greg Hinckley. And then we also have an endowment piece of Title V. So we're helping as the foundation raises money, then there's a matching part. Like this year, $60,000 was raised by Deborah, and then Title V will match that. Right. So I'm turning it back over to you for next steps.
Oops. There we go. Okay, so where are we going for the next 18 months or so? We're looking at requiring new student orientation to be mandatory. Research at other institutions has shown a very significant effectiveness to that. New student orientation, I'm going off script here, but I've been to a couple new student orientations. It's one of my favorite parts, even when I was faculty and going there, because they're so excited to be here, and we want to help build that community and keep them here. So we really want that to be an experience that everybody gets to participate in. And then we also are looking at pushing a draft policy through, not pushing, but moving it through, for advising for, I was going to say political terminology, for making mandatory advising for the first year students. I just had one of the peer leaders actually come to me today who needed a schedule change because she had self-advised, and she's one of our peer advisors. So students who think they know what they're doing sometimes don't. Those of us who have made a lifetime of education, we can walk and talk it, but we need to share that with these students and give them that hand so they're not finding those mistakes on their own. We're also looking at doing the STEM cohort focus, and we're looking at creating a STEM 111 class, possibly matching that with a first year student success. And so Emily Stern and I are looking at what classes are going to be linked with that focus in mind. Continuing to increase linked courses, not only in the STEM areas, but what other areas can we do and link and get students through even the taste of, if they're starting out in developmental level courses, give them a taste of their major so that they're not bored in those first few areas if that's not turning them on. For example, math is mine. Facilitate and support academics and integrated learning so that the faculty know that this can actually be really fun and it's not a ton of work for them, and it really is geared towards student success. And then development of a campus-wide advising model. So my next plan is to meet with all the departments and see what works for them for advising, so then how can we assist that so that students aren't getting lost in the fray anywhere.
Thank you.
A couple of things. Way back when I was at the college, we tried a new student orientation, and I went to visit a campus, and it turned out that first of all, it wasn't successful because it wasn't mandatory, so I totally agree with that. But I think there's one thing that we had, there's different age groups relate to orientation in a different way, so that student that is the more mature student, it's not going to be the hip hip hurrah student orientation. It's going to be a different type of orientation, and I think that's important, you know. And also, I taught the developmental math up at Northern, and we were developing a combined math course because the majority of students, the first part is review, so I think that's a great thing also, do the combined thing, and so I really agree with that, and I'm a total supporter of mandatory new student orientation. I think it's really important for the success of the students, and so just as a comment.
Thank you. And those high-impact practices definitely are showing that's an important thing.
Yeah.
I have a question. How long do you think it takes, or has it taken, from your grant started in 2010? How long does it take to do the integrated learning and the linked classes? Because there's a lot of curriculum revision, I would imagine, with that. I mean, that's what we're finding with the Achieving the Dream schools.
I think with the very formal linked classes where, like the Psych 111 and English 109, that it does take quite a bit of time, and part of the grant is for paying for faculty to help develop that, and then also the pilot year, and then if somebody else comes in that is different, but you know, the thing that we're so optimistic about is what they've done at Seattle Central Community College, and that being able to get that started here and have that kind of organically grow, because the administrative overhead is not nearly as much, and that from what Greg Hinckley told us, that it just kind of catches on, like, and the students help promote that, because that's what he said, that there was an economics professor at the school he was at, didn't want to have anything to do with it, but then he got several of Greg's students that had been part of it, and so they were exerting some pressure about doing it, and then we actually voted here when he was here to have water as our common theme. Great. And so that, and right now we have a pilot where we're looking at Biology 111, English 109, and Sociology 111, doing kind of being the pioneers, leading that. But you know, that first week of the semester before school starts, we had about 25 faculty attending 2 different Friday sessions where they could go and work with him and get assistance. And I mean, I think it's very promising. And I think for institutionalization, I think that is where it can live on. And what he said, what they were finding at Seattle Central, is that students who do the integrated assignments have the same kind of positive retention, increased GPA, all of those things, but you don't have to do nearly as much of that. It's not as labor intensive as the linked classes. And you know, like accelerated, like English 109, English 111, I think those are going to be things that live on because there's a demand for them and they make sense. But some of the interdisciplinary, that's what I would like to get before the grant goes away, something that would continue on.
So the faculty's role is really critical to the development of curriculum, to the development of sort of the process in the classroom and all of that. Well, and they work really hard at that.
Excuse me, I get excited. Randy attended that session that we brought Greg here in August in the summer, and Randy attended it, and he said, let's see if we can bring him back for convocation. And then we scheduled it so that adjunct and regular faculty all were invited, and we had about 85 people who went to that.
And right now, part of the grant is also Emily Stern's position, which is curriculum specialist. So she's helping the faculty design this so they're not just, here you go, on your own.
Yeah,
But have some guidance. And then she and I are now looking at how can we institutionalize this as well, to keep kind of a cultural
Well done.
perspective to it.
Mr. Chair?
Kathy?
A couple of questions. So, is there an opportunity to renew Title V funds for the school, or is it a one-time?
Well, we've had other Title V grants, but I think there is that you have to sit out for, is it a year or, but I think our opportunity to get another Title V grant, if you've done really good work, will be enhanced.
But I think, if I remember correctly, you can't do the same thing with the new Title V grant. It has to be probably a movement forward. Yeah.
Very good. Second question, what is the counselor to student ratio at SFCC?
You know, I don't know overall, but in the Welcome and Advising Center, who's reaching out to the first-year students, it's probably about, they each are calling between 80 and 100 students. We have 5 advisors.
Okay.
And then as they move through, you know, we are working as part of that advising model to then move them on to faculty or other folks.
Great.
Okay. Good. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'm still up, right? So Employee of the Month, we've got 2 months to catch up on here. So first one is for November, the Pass It Forward, we got Rebecca Estrada and Heidi Weingart. So Heidi, come back. Heidi?
Hi, thank you, Chair Beta, members of the board, Randy. It's a joke, sorry.
You can say President Randy.
President Randy. President Grissom. When I was here last time with Teresa Roybal and she introduced me, I talked a little bit about how lucky I was because the successes I was able to reach had so much to do with the team that I worked with, not just in my office, but across campus. And Heidi Weingart has been one of those invaluable members of the team. And so, you know, students whom she has taught in her biology courses and in her medical assisting and phlebotomy cohorts will tell you what a great educator, mentor, and advisor she's been. So already we knew she was respected across campus by students and her colleagues. A little more near and dear to my heart is what she's been able to do for recruitment and dual credit efforts. And in terms of recruitment, she was always open, welcoming, accessible to students, absolutely willing to let me exploit her in a lot of ways. She, not only did she let me sort of invade her space here on campus with prospective students where she would give dynamic presentations about the allied health opportunities here, but she would go on the road. We were able to take her to Capitol High School and to other high schools. She took the cool little things that they could play with, like mannequins, and kind of show them what was kind of very cool and sexy about all the different things we had here in that particular area. In terms of dual credit, she was instrumental in creating nurse aid and medical terminology cohorts on both the Santa Fe Indian School and the Capitol High School campuses. So living there with our adjunct faculty, getting those students who are in the Medical Sciences Academy and in the what they would call also the biomed program at Santa Fe Indian School. She also made sure that those students who were coming here to our campus always had slots in those high demand programs, again, nurse aid, medical terminology, phlebotomy, home health aid, and a few others, and just always was kind enough to save spots for those high achieving students who were ready for that. So obviously she has made my job a little bit easier, which I always appreciate. And now I'm just lucky to have her as a partner in that first year advising as the director of the advising and first year experience. So I'm hoping we get to continue our work and make that transition between recruitment and first year just that much smoother, because always that can be improved. So because of all of that, I really thought like she was the natural choice for me to pass it forward. So Heidi, I'm passing it forward. Yay.
Rebecca makes it easy to work with, I'll be honest. She does 99.9% of the legwork with everything that she's credited me for. She's kind of passing the buck on that one, I'll be honest. one of my greatest joys, when I was a student in college, I worked in admissions, so recruiting students is a real passion of mine, and the ability to now be the director of advising is yay. And so I'm excited to work with her in this way as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You get to quickly pass it forward.
Yeah, I get to pass it forward to Deborah Carr. So. You guys will have enough of me by then.
This is the fun part.
My thunder, because you're the star. A twinkle out there.
So when I was asked to pass it forward, Deborah Carr immediately came to mind. I worked with Deborah extensively in the continuing education department. She's a program manager. I always get her name. I always call her kind of the queen of continuing ed. So, she has been invaluable to me. I know education and academia. Unfortunately, sometimes we lose that connection with the community, and Deborah Carr is instrumental in ensuring that we have that connection to the community. She goes above and beyond to go to networking opportunities, to meetings, to community functions, to councils, just to get the name of SFCC out there. She's passing out every business card she can find. Yeah, I know, all of us. She's marketing for us. We pay her. What do you need? This is who you get in contact with. Let's work with SFCC. Let's get a partnership going. She is really just instrumental in that. And I personally have observed her when my previous director position, working with the Santa Fe County Fire Department. She actually would go to their off-campus continuing education sites to make sure that they were signed up, that they were enrolled, and she always was sure to bring the credit schedule as well. Now donuts. She always brought donuts too. Now that you've been to the one continuing ed program, have you thought about coming to SFCC for more? What else can we do for you? So I've always been impressed by that. She shows up to the fitness center to make sure that the swim kids are signed in, and that no moms are going crazy or anything over there. So I've just always been impressed with how above and beyond she consistently goes to make sure that the community that SFCC serves has their needs met. And there's nobody that deserves it more in my mind.
Thank you so much, Heidi. It's like a love fest here today. And can I give it back to you again? Is that allowed? No, I'm not allowed to. And one of the things that Heidi didn't talk about, which I hope we can continue and do in future, is with the high school, the HEP students, the high school educational program through Christus, St. Vincent Medical Center, and they do a summer program of scholarships to approximately 30 students in the local high schools, and students have to apply, and they have to show an interest in healthcare. And so what we've worked on for the past 2 years is offering basic life support classes, doing a tour of campus, and Heidi giving information about healthcare specifically, and working with the other Pass It Forward person, Rebecca Estrada, doing campus tours for these students, so they do come back. And this year, Heidi, be prepared if Ms. Cheryl will let you do this, wherever you are, Cheryl. And by the way, Cheryl, I have a Twitter account. They're going to have 4 groups instead of 2. So it's first year, second year, and now they're following these students to see where they have gone. Have they gone to UNM? Have they stayed in the medical field? And how they could come back and mentor the upcoming students. So there is a partnership, so I'm already signing you up. Thank you for all of your support. And all of us that do get this Pass It Forward, it's really a community thing and a department thing. I couldn't do it without my coworkers and the WAC, the CAT, and all the other people around here. It's the Welcome and Advising Center and the Career, Academic Transition, CAT, WAC, we both have CATs, that's why I said that. So it is really a community. It's not just an individual doing something halfway different or exciting. It is a community thing. And it's such a pleasure to see you all, because I'm over there in the lower 48 near the kids campus, so I don't come to, I call it main campus that much. So thank you. Thank you.
On the Wildgrams, I don't know if we have people here in November. Jackie Gutierrez had nominated Jeannie Archuleta, who retired 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and Jackie couldn't be here tonight. Her son has a basketball game.
Okay.
She apologizes.
That's more important.
And then for December, Tina Ledesky-Taylor nominated Malvina Cannon, and Malvina's not here tonight either, is she?
Right.
Okay, great. So thank you. Okay, so that's President's report.
That's it. Okay, thanks. Donna, do we have any public comment?
We do. Matt Sherman?
Hey.
Thank you, Matt.
Good New Year.
Did you notice?
Hi, Matt.
Thank you, brother.
So I was trying to keep it to one, and I couldn't, so I went with 4 things to talk about. I'll keep this very short. In number 1, I'm talking about the plastic bottle reduction initiative. We got consensus from staff, faculty, senate, and student government last semester. I went to great lengths to try to make awareness of the vote and to educate and make aware of people of the vote as much as possible. Number 2 and 3 and 4, actually number 2 and 3, are talking about certain laws I learned about in environmental law last semester. I thought I was going crazy for a bit there when the student government did some things that I thought were corrupt. And I wrote a nice long complaint letter, which is in your package there. But what I didn't know about was the Sunshine Law that requires notice of important actions during board meetings and how the public is supposed to know these things to prevent underhanded type of decision making without the public knowledge. So I'm using that argument and that law in my argument against the behavior of what happened in September of 2013 regarding the budget for student government. And I brought it up last semester, and I'm bringing it up again because I feel very strongly that there is something wrong here, and it needs to be addressed. And I've offered some solutions to the problem, but I really would like to discuss it further. The last section is in regard to sustainability on campus and some things that I've been trying to, not I, but me and other sustainable people on campus are trying to achieve, such as a composting program and a stronger recycling program and an awareness campaign. So for example, with the plastic bottle reduction initiative, I'm hoping that we can get a marketing campaign to educate the student body about why we're doing what we're doing. And then I referenced these 2 state statutes, which I'm not going to read aloud because I probably will take up my time. But the first one is talking about how secondary education institutions like SFCC are supposed to be having composting, having recycling programs, and very strong ones on their campus. And we do comply with that somewhat. I just think that we can do a lot better and that we can educate the student body about it more. And then the next one, 17, talks about the demand to promote these programs to educate the student body and the community at large. Now, there's nobody enforcing these laws or making sure that the school's complying with them, and that's fine. I'm just saying, can we please look at them and try to comply with them because they stand for the right thing as far as sustainability is concerned, and we should try to be the example for society and things of that nature. I hope to talk to you more about this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Excuse me, I actually have a comment.
Comment is usually for public comment, we do not have comment. I'm sorry.
I'll talk to you afterwards, Matt.
Donna?
That's it.
That's it? Oh,
Only public comment.
okay. Communication, Faculty Senate report?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, members of the board, Happy New Year. Just trying to catch updates with you a little bit on the conversation in Faculty Senate this semester. We just started coming back from a hiatus and then getting back in the groove here. With Mr. Grissom's leadership, the council structure is in for another go, and we're meeting those now on Thursday afternoons 3 to 5, and so I'd like to announce the Faculty Senate appointments to there. In the Technology Council, Ms. Phyllis Baca, Mr. Sean Miller, and Adjunct Betsy Walker. Administrative Services, Ms. Phyllis Baca, we're getting a lot out of her this semester. And Ms. Megan Hopkins, there's another opportunity there for a full-time faculty member that we're yet to identify. Academic and Student Success, Mr. Robert Shankin and Ms. Laura Rosenfeld will be serving on that council. Institutional Effectiveness, Mr. Jerry Friedman, Ms. Dawn Wink, and Megan Hopkins for the adjunct representative. And so we still have a little bit of work there to pull in another couple of individuals, but we're very optimistic and very excited about that participation and feel that it's going to help the college in that shared governance process. The ongoing discussion otherwise, the other main note is continuing conversation about inaugurating an advocacy chapter for the AAUP here at Santa Fe Community College, American Association of University Professors, which is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. And so the last week of February in Faculty Senate, which is the fourth Friday, Mr. Jason Elias, who's the Western Region Coordinator, will visit us and speak with us about the process of what the responsibilities and opportunities that entails for our faculty, but also our college campus. And then our goals in there really then are to, it can help build relationships for the faculty here with the national professorate, help advise and inform faculty on budgets, resources, and academic priorities. A chapter needs to communicate with all key constituencies at the college regularly. You know, that people are communicating is really critical and understanding, you know, where we stand on key decisions and processes. And then a chapter can become active in a state conference, per se. There's membership at NMSU and also at UNM. And then in that, then the goal for a local chapter, which we have enough members actually now to inaugurate, but have yet to go into the bylaw process on it. A chapter is to promote or can promote faculty participation in sound governance, continuing to develop for the general good and welfare of the college, its institutions, students, and faculty. With the faculty continuing to develop well-reasoned, well-researched, and well-documented points of view. This, we believe, is a very important step for the faculty here at the college, and begin to align ourselves with like more national issues and, you know, begin to align with what our peers are doing in other institutions across the country. And so it's, you know, kind of a voyage of discovery, I think, for us, but ultimately it will be something, I think, that helps to contribute to the maturation of the college as a whole within its community. And that's kind of catching you as an update on where we are with that. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Martha, go ahead.
Can you talk about how the AAUP chapters differ from unions?
Yes, ma'am. The AAUP is not a union. It is a professional organization that has, for 100 years, has represented academic and faculty issues and concerns related to shared governance, academic freedom, intellectual property. It can align with collective bargaining as well, and it can align with unions, which are separate entities altogether. The AUP is not one, but in the event that this faculty at some point should decide to go that route, it can become a bridge to that regard. You know, I personally do not believe that is a scary thing for this institution to begin to examine. It comes with certain benefits and also responsibilities. But the AUP, to its benefit, and this should be said clearly, is always to maintain professional decorum and communication, and the best interests of the faculty are with the best interests of the institution. And the way I understand it, I'm sure my education is going to be expanded in some new ways, and I'll share those with you as it goes on. But the position of the AUP is to remind us, the way I understand it, is that the faculty, administration, the president, the community, and the students are as in spokes to a wheel analogy to the institution. All separately serve vital and important roles and functions that may have a different perspective that contribute to the overall health and good of the institution. Yeah. The union, or a union, and collective bargaining typically has to do with workload, finances, pay, that sort of thing.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions, Kathy or Linda?
No, I just think that's a very positive thing.
Thank you. We're excited about it, actually, and we'll keep you abreast.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
A staff senate report?
You can't go yet.
Good evening, Chair Beta, members of the board, Mr. Grissom. It is my pleasure to just give you a brief update on where things stand with the Staff Senate. Zuby is not here this evening. He's flying. The last time I caught him at the airport this afternoon. So the two main things that have been the topics of discussion in Staff Senate, the three main things that have been the topics of discussion in Staff Senate have been, again, these issues around sort of the shared governance model and the role of the councils and how this will all integrate. And we also are very optimistic, feeling very positive about the meeting that we had a few weeks ago with the council chairs. There are, I think, other issues that still need to be worked out, some substantive, some procedural, but we're all very confident that that will happen, and very pleased about it, and very much stand in support of finding ways to make the councils work, because we really do think that they could serve a important purpose here at the college as far as including the community in the way we make decisions here. The second area that we've been talking about has to do with human resource issues, not individual staff members and human resource issues, but sort of bigger issues related to employee benefits, compensation, promotion within our pay grades and the like, so as to not completely overwhelm Anne in her first 2 weeks here. We have been trying to organize ourselves, and we have a subcommittee that's working on putting together sort of a list of the primary things so that we can set up a structured discussion with her and have that move in a productive way. And then, of course, we'll work with the Human Resources Committee of the Administrative Services Council as well as that progresses. On behalf of the staff, we want to thank you very much for the salary increase that you passed in the December bar. It was something that we had brought up a while ago, and it came back, and we really appreciated you remembering us in that request, and are very grateful for that recognition. We appreciate it. The final thing is that we are working on revising in a pretty substantial way the Staff Senate Constitution. The Constitution was last revised in 2008, but those were pretty minor revisions. The last really substantive revision was in 2004, so it's been 10 years, and of course the institution has changed considerably in terms of the size and nature of the staffing here. Our primary objective is to really simplify and streamline the Constitution. And of course, the Constitution is something that needs to be improved by the governing board. We are hoping that we might be able to get a first reading for you at the February meeting. we'll see how it goes. The draft, we have a draft, it's been approved in principle. We need to do more vetting within the community, and then actually take a broad vote within, amongst the staff. But what we're hoping to do is move sort of the minutia of how we govern ourselves out of the Constitution and into bylaws, so that the Constitution simply grants us the authority from you for the Staff Center to exist, for us to govern ourselves, for us to participate in shared governance. And then when we talk about things like how many times a month should we meet, and what constitutes a quorum for what kind of votes, and those sorts of things. We want to move all that detail out of the actual Constitution document, so that if we want to change it in the future, we don't have to bring it back to you every time. So those are the primary things that we've been working on.
Do we have any questions? Randy?
I'd like to make a comment. This goes back to Faculty Senate as well. I think we made great progress on talking about the council structure and going down to 4 councils from 7. We've done a lot of work in talking about the focus of the councils, being more project-focused as opposed to policy-focused, how to do that, identifying standing committees that would somewhat report to those councils, as well as ad hoc committees that are really a special project-based and doing things across the board. So I'm optimistic that we've come up with a format that we're still working on of getting those going. We think that having the set meetings on Thursdays from 3 to 5 will allow better participation and a little more regular structure to do that. So we will be starting that next week, I believe, with the Academic and Student Success Council. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Student government report?
Good evening, everybody. I just had a few things I wanted to mention. Tomorrow's our second meeting of the semester, so anyone that wants to join us in Hems 3 from 12 to 1 is welcome. Welcome week was great, and the student ambassadors were great help to the new students and students in general. February 13th is a day at the legislature, so anyone that wants to be involved, contact either Ernest Kavanaugh or Janet Berry down in student development. Let's see. And Office of Student Development is sponsoring the Club Resource Fair on Thursday, February 6th. So anyone that wants to see what clubs the school has is welcome to come in the campus center. And that's it. Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Randy.
I just want to add one thing to his report. Tomorrow is the Academic All-Stars Day down at the Capitol, and Phi Theta Kappa, and so we have 2 students that will be recognized tomorrow. And so I will be down there tomorrow morning, and anybody else that's welcome to come.
Thank you.
Could you do me a favor and get a list of your clubs and give it to Donna, and then she'll give it to me?
Yes, we
Thanks,
actually
man.
have one down in student development. So
Appreciate that, thanks.
I'll do that tomorrow before the meeting or around that time.
All right. Okay, any other questions or anything concerning student government or anything? No? Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move to approval of agenda for the special closed board meeting on November 11th, and then our closed meeting on November 18th, our joint meeting with the foundation on November 19th, board meeting on November 19th, regular board meeting, special board meeting on December 2nd, and a closed board meeting on December 11th, and a regular board meeting on December 13th. Whew. It wasn't easy. Okay, also, should we include the matters related to the SFC policy, or should we do them separately? Is it?
I think we need to do them separately.
Okay, but each of the agendas, do we have a motion to approve all the agendas that we talked about?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items for the minutes of the meeting.
2, 4, 6, 7?
Yes.
Martha? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Now, unless there's any discussion, sorry. Matters related to SFCC policy, procurement policy, part 1 and part 2, technology uses, policy 8-1, and associate in applied arts and associate in applied science degree requirements, policy 3-4. Any comments or questions or?
I move approval of the first two.
Okay, and
Second.
second, okay. So the approval of the first two, which would be procurement policy, part 1 and part 2, and technology uses. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? So, Martha, I'm assuming that the associate applied science and associate degree requirements, is that not something that, or you're not clear on that, or what's?
I just want to vote no on that.
Okay. Should we wait till Linda comes, and are we going to have a vote on that?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay. All right. We will now have a moment of silence. And you can think of the deity of your choice.
Mr. Chair, do we need to remove that from the consent agenda and put it in the action items for discussion?
Okay.
I suppose that's more appropriate, correct?
I would remove, yes, I would move to remove the applied science and associate in applied science degree requirements from the consent agenda to the action items.
All right. And can we do that now that we didn't do it at the beginning to change an agenda item? Is it possible to still do that?
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Okay, no sweat then. No problem. We're okay then. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Linda, what we did while you were out, we just did the approval of the consent agendas and the first two matters related to SFCC policy, and then we're moving the other one to discussion. Is that okay? Bueno. Okay, action items for discussion? No.
Now we're on to
Now we need the
now
one you just removed.
Now we're going to do the discussion?
Yeah, this one we just.
Okay, so, SFCC Associate in Applied Arts and Associate in Applied Science degree requirements, Policy 3-4, discussion. Martha,
Yeah,
I guess you're on.
I guess I'm on. I will vote against this policy change because I believe that we have eroded away the general education requirements to such an extent in our technical degrees that many of the requirements that businesses and employers now want in their employees are being eroded away from our training programs. And so I think that's a bad policy to take, so my vote will be no.
And what would those be? Like, give me some idea.
Communication, understanding human relations, understanding critical thinking from the standpoint of how you use data and things, persistence, and the kinds of things that make for a good living in people, what makes good citizens, because we don't have any citizenship requirement in those programs, and the kinds of things that I think students learn from being passionate and committed to things like drama and art and music.
Randy?
Just, Mr. Chair and members of the board, just a reminder, what we did in the changes is two things. One, I think, which is not in disagreement, is we added English 119 or English 111 as a requirement. I think we're all in agreement there.
Yeah.
What we did is we lowered the number of hours required in behavioral social sciences and humanities from 9 to 6. And so that's the difference, just to remind you of those. So.
Yes, that is the difference that I'm objecting to.
My question is, Randy, you would know this, because I don't. Having worked as an advisor and realizing those requirements of whether it be 9 or 6, does that comply with the state, what they require for the core requirements? And is it something that other colleges are doing from 9 to 6, or do most colleges in the state require 9?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there are no requirements from the state for Associate of Applied Science or Associate of Arts degrees, so we kind of have set our own in those respects. We are at the high end in terms of the general ed courses that are required for our degree compared to some of our peer institutions in New Mexico. It ranges all the way from I think 9 credit hours at one institution, which we think is way too little, and we are the highest. Many are at the 15 to 18 credit hour area. We're at 25 right now. This would lower it to 22. We were at 35 a year or two ago, if I remember correctly. So we have made some changes over the years. So it's, institutions do it differently in different places.
Is it appropriate to ask what your view on this is?
To me, the most important aspect of this is the addition of the English 119 because it really is more appropriate. I think one of the challenges we have, and it's something we could address, it's very confusing to our students because we list in our degrees you have to take 3 to 6 hours of behavioral social sciences and 3 to 6 hours of humanities, and there's a footnote that talks about the 9. And so we find people coming in all the time who only took the 3 in each, and they're short, and they think they're ready to graduate, and then we find people that took 6 and 6, they didn't need to. So I think that's an issue we could address. I am sensitive to the issues that Board Member Romero has brought up. I think we're addressing some of those in the way we're doing some of our other classes and some of our core areas, but it's not the same as having those courses in humanities or behavioral social sciences. I graduated from a liberal arts college, and I think it was very valuable. So,
Can I ask a process question? Who reviews these changes?
Mr. Chair, Board Member Single, this came out of Curriculum Committee. So this is a recommendation of Curriculum Committee. They revised the policy based upon some requests that came to them, and then it flowed through the shared governance process. So it was approved by both Faculty Senate and Staff Senate and the executive team, and that's why it moved on to the board.
Well, Kathy, do you have any comment or questions? Any more, Linda? No. Martha?
No, I've said my piece.
Yeah.
I think we need to vote.
Okay. Well, I just one more real quick comment. I think that having worked as an advisor, I think that that it's difficult many times to get a clear picture. If this change makes the picture clearer and allows a student to get a degree quicker or something, or I don't know. I understand the requiring something that's going to be more beneficial for the student, but is moving it from 9 to 6 going to do that? It's just that, because that's just one course, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair and board members. What it did is it took 3 hours out of the general ed requirements, and in some cases allowed for 3 more hours in your area of major or related requirements, or in some areas it actually did lower the number of credit hours in the degree. So we still have to be at the 61, 62 total credit hours as a minimum.
Okay. Well, do we have a motion to vote then?
I move to approve the policy as presented.
Second? Am I allowed to second it?
I don't think so, but I'll second for you, so we can vote. I'll second so we can vote.
Okay. I am allowed to vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the policy?
Aye.
Aye. So there's 2, and those not?
Aye.
Okay, 2-2.
I don't know.
And so what is that,
I think that we take the policy back to the curriculum committee.
Right.
So the current policy will stay in effect.
all right. Is that appropriate on a tie vote?
Yes.
I vote.
Usually if you don't have a majority, you stay with, it doesn't pass.
Okay,
I vote doesn't pass.
all right. Oh, boy. Okay. Let me get to the next one here, I'm sorry. All right, so we're gonna move into tab E. Election of board secretary. Wasn't there a policy already in place of just the next person moves up?
Right, but we don't
There is
know
no
who
next
the
person.
next person is because we have 2 new board members.
That came on at exactly the same time? Okay. So, do we need to vote, or I'm okay if one of you want to volunteer as, no, seriously, if it's something that doesn't necessarily need an election, if we can just say, well, I'd like to volunteer of one of you two, I'm fine with that. Linda, are you? Is that okay, or?
Let me ask a question about your former process. What is it? You are chair until April, is that correct?
Correct?
And then Linda takes over?
That's correct.
And then does the secretary normally move up to that
Yes.
position? Or is that another?
No.
The vice chair, it just,
Oh,
And the next person in line would become the
the
secretary.
secretary. All right.
So, either one of you are going to be the secretary. If it's not now, it'll be later. So,
Yeah, let's flip a coin.
okay.
But I think we do need a motion, though.
yeah, I'll make
Once
a
you
motion
decide it.
once.
Once you flip the coin.
Flip a coin. I have a quarter.
Good.
Okay, good. Make sure it's not one of those that has 2 heads on it.
I will let Martha see. It has heads and tails.
Oh, it's heads and tails.
Now I have to flip it and catch it, which is the hard part.
Have her flip it and
Don't
catch
let
it.
it go to the floor.
Okay, and we'll let a third party do it. Okay, all right.
All right.
So what do you want? What do you want?
I call heads.
Tails.
Tails.
Okay.
Make your motion, Linda.
So it's your choice, right?
It's your choice, all right. I move that Martha be appointed secretary.
Second.
Second. I think you said that a little too quick. Okay, all those in favor of, or we've had the motion, is there any discussion? I'm sorry. No? All those in favor of Martha Romero being our secretary?
Aye.
Aye.
You voted for yourself. Thank you.
Never
Okay.
mind. Yes.
All right, and the motion passes. All those against? All right. Okay, so that was done. With the good spirit. Thank you. Approval of the financial report, which we went over in the work session, correct? And so we're just going to do
We did not.
We didn't do the financial.
We need to go over them in here briefly.
all right. No sweat. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
No, that's all right. Good evening, Mr. Chidu, Mr. President, and members of the board. Financial operations in October and November, we're actually looking quite a bit back historically. There have been significant developments in December and January that I think are salient and important for the board to hear about. And so I'm going to be very, very brief in remarks about October and November. Because of all the activity with funding formula and budgeting and various other areas, I welcome guidance from President Grissom if I overlook anything, if I'm too brief, and then I'll get out of your way for questions. I mentioned in the work session earlier that for whatever reason we did not get the October report into your electronic packet. We passed out hard copies of that. Of course, that's available to you and the community if you need it. October and November operations, as I mentioned, were nominal. There were no surprises. The last time we went over a financial report formally was at the November meeting when we talked about September. And by that point in time, we had a good idea of what had occurred in October and November. And so nothing occurred in October and November that would be different than board expectations. In short, we paid our bills. And in October and November, I would direct the board to page E5, the graphic that shows the cash position. I want you to see that in November, we are below the line on the graph. Now, Dave Stewart and I, we actually reported to the board in September that we were changing this graph so that rather than seeing a projected cash position, the board would see it actually as it is. And that actually every year in October and November is fairly ugly because that is the bottom of our cash flow cycle. The reason I'm pointing this out is because as we reported to the board in November and discussed in, I believe, our December work session, we did receive our 2 December and January mill levy receipts, our appropriation receipts. On December 19th, we received $6.28 million from the county, of which $4.6 million was operational money, and the balance was for plant and maintenance operations. And then just today, on January 28th, and I was really sweating this out because I was concerned we wouldn't make it for the board meeting, but just today we were notified that we received the second appropriation payment, which was $6.807 million, of which $5 million is operational money, and the balance inures to plant and maintenance. So in total, in December and January, again, with there were no unusual happenings at all in October and November, but since the time we last did this report, we have received $13.075 million in mill levy appropriations. $9.6 million of that is operational money, which cures our negative position on the graph and puts us in very good condition to get through the remainder of the semester, and also beefs up our plant funds so that we can move forward. So that's very good news. And in general, by the next board meeting, when you see, we'll be reporting December and January, and you'll see in general a cash flow chart that in general looks more healthy. It looks more like the beginning of the semester. Let me just flip forward to highlights. I should point out in the October and November reports that, as we discussed, the November financial report, for reasons that we discussed earlier today, we were talking about salary comparisons and various institutional expenditures. As of November 30th, our expenditures were running about 4% above revenues. And so again, this whole picture at November 30th, what you see is that we're about 5% upside down for our total year-to-date budget. That's been corrected in December and January with our mill levy receipts. Let's flip back, and again, I'm intentionally being brief because we've had quite a bit of financial discussion today already, so I'll slow down for questions. Let's flip back to auxiliaries and talk about Kids Campus just for a moment.
Which page are you on?
I'm on page E9. I promised Member Siegel at the November meeting that at the January meeting she could nail me down on a number for Kids Campus. And so we've got that number, and that's what I wanted to share with you. As of the budget that we submitted to HED on May 1st, we were budgeted for a $332,000 subsidy for Kids Campus, which is a large number relative to that operation. Now, Maggie Zinn and Bob McWilliams have been very carefully tracking the activities of Kids Campus throughout the school year because of changes that the board has already heard about. And we finally are in a position where we can sort of see toward the end of the year. So what we believe is going to happen, and I think this is a pretty close estimate that we've been beating up pretty hard for the last week or so to make sure it's close to accurate, is that we're anticipating revenue for the year of $634,000. Anticipating expenses of $756,000. Now, this is not in your report. I'm actually reading a separate memo here because we just nailed these numbers down this afternoon. So the range of our anticipated subsidy as of the end of the fiscal year will be $96,000 to $122,000, and we're leaving some room to work in there because there are a few changes taking place at the kids' campus. Now, the significance of that, even if we take our worst case scenario, which is the $122,000 subsidy, that number is 37% of the budgeted amount. Or to look at it a different way, that's a 63% improvement over last year, and last year was consistent with the prior year. So the answer, going back to our discussion now from 60 days ago, is we will almost surely subsidize the kids campus. We will subsidize the kids campus for approximately $100,000, which represents a little bit less than a third of what we had budgeted.
But what's that attributable to?
It is attributable, I would say, having looked at the detail today, Ms. Siegel, that Kids Campus has a pretty broad range of relatively variable expenses, and some of those change during the year. So at the beginning of the year, there were changes in personnel and other activities. At the beginning of the year, it looked like, from a projective standpoint, the first time we discussed this in September, that we might be able to have the operation run flat. Now that we're halfway through the fiscal year, it doesn't look like we're going to. President Grissom, the inside, or Bob? Is Bob in the room?
Because really you're talking about revenue about what is projected, but then you're looking at cutting the expenses much more, sounds like. Because I believe you said somewhere in the high 600s as revenue.
About mid 630s for revenue, mid 750s for expenditure, as opposed to what we were anticipating at the beginning of the year. Looked more like mid 600s for revenue and close to $1 million in expenses. So, you have a comment on this?
Revenue, members of the board, President. The revenues are up this year because we've increased from approximately 63 students to approximately 100 full-time equivalents. And I say that because the goal that we all decided upon was that we would help students. And so there's some students that need to bring their children in Tuesdays and Thursdays, some need to bring Monday, Wednesday. But we have 100 full-time equivalents. It's slightly more actual students, and that is added to the increase in revenue. We attempted, because Dr. Guzman had asked us to attempt to make this break even. The challenge with that is you'll only ever break even if everything goes right. So the first time a faculty member gets pregnant and has to be put on leave and at the front desk because she can't lift the kids anymore, and then you have to hire a teacher to come in and take her place while that happens, that throws that perfect world off. So I think what Brian was just mentioning here is I think the best case scenario is we'll be in that 90 to 120 deficit situation, but it is the big improvement. Because of the changes that we've made, we were able to reduce that ever expanding deficit that had been going on.
And it's probably,
I can't tell everyone how many years we go through exactly the same thing. We have the $300,000, $400,000 deficit, and we talk about what are we going to do, and then we still have it. Randy, you know that.
I remember 10 years ago.
But the challenge is if we're committed to 5-star status, that requires a certain level of faculty member to teach the children, and so in most organizations it's 80% of your cost is your salary and benefits.
So Linda, are you saying that it's the deficit has been reduced from 300,000 to 122,000?
Well, I'm hearing that is what we're projecting this time.
Okay.
And hopefully that will be right. But oftentimes we get this rosy projection and then it doesn't happen. So I hope that it does. And I thought that we had added pre-K classes or something, and that the Brindle Foundation is funding something. And
Madam Chair, members of the board, that is true, and we have some opportunity, I think, to even expand some more, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. and add some more classes with some more funding. So there are some opportunities that we haven't been able to take advantage of yet that I think are still potential. And it's something that we're going to keep taking a close look at.
Right. Well, I think that one of the things we have to be mindful of is within this program, the most expensive part is the infant program.
Yeah.
That doesn't make money even with the full pay people. And, Dr. Guzman and I mentioned, well, get rid of infants. However, if we're truly to be a community service, not get rid of it, that's
Right,
paraphrasing, get rid of the yes. Right. Anyway, if we do not serve infants, that would then reduce our cost, and we can fill it with pre-K. However, we are only one of, I believe, 3, and certainly one of the most, well-known infant programs in the county. So to make that decision, I think, moves away from the community service, but of course, it's your all call.
And there is funding proposed in the legislature to increase the infant rate because everyone is losing on infants.
Yes.
Good.
And we have a waiting list of about 20, 25, and some of them aren't even born yet, so
Yes.
that's how soon you have to get on the.
I was going to
You have
say
to get
they
on the
won't be
list.
infants by the time they get in.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, it might be worth adding too, in deference to Bob and Maggie's work. When I first discussed this with the board in September, as I told you I would, I asked some hard questions. And what I've been impressed with Maggie's and Bob's work is that, again, even today, those hard questions have been met with serious, legitimate financial analysis. And so one of the things that I have some comfort zone about this, as we talked about some months ago, it's highly ambitious, whether it's a public agency unit or on the for-profit side. It's a highly ambitious thing to go from a deficit position, a subsidized position that represents a third of your operation, and to fix that in 1 year. But what I think is extremely admirable here is that the projections that were done back in August and September were really solid, legitimate numbers. Bob and I really parsed those pretty well before we talked to the board about it. But events have taken place at the kids' campus, and again, the nature of dealing with small children, the nature of dealing with an instructional unit is you just don't always know what's coming. So the one thing I would say about this, and if this is too high certainty, then please correct me, but the one thing we do continue to have some control over as we execute the fiscal year are some aspects of the expenses. And it may be as we progress that even we're trying to give the board a conservative projection. We did not want to come in and give you pie in the sky. So we're saying $100,000 subsidy. That may very well be the case, but it may also be as we progress over the next few months that some of the worst case scenarios we can improve. Is that a reasonable?
We're working on that every day.
So there you are.
And I'd like to offer President Randy that when at the beginning of the meetings when we have presentations, I'm sure Maggie would be glad to, rather than just discuss it as a deficit thing, but to actually see the program, and I'm sure the teachers would come in and do a nice little presentation for the board, and they would welcome that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other than that, auxiliaries, food services, or as of December 31st, as of right at the end of the year, food services are a little bit in the black, which is a good thing, and that operation has significantly improved. And I think everything else is pretty much as we would expect it to be at this point in the year. So unless Mr. President has anything I've missed, that's where we are.
Okay. Thank you.
Good questions.
Right?
Oh, I move to accept the financial report
Second.
All those in favor of accepting, or if we have any
for
discussion
October and November.
for October and November? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All those opposed?
So we'll have,
Passes.
we won't have January by February 18th, right? We'll just have December?
We probably could. That's not our normal pattern, but I believe we could.
If it's possible, let's try to get it.
It's possible, sure.
Close it. It may not be in your packet, and you may have
just
it
get a handout?
that day, yes.
Because didn't we change our board meeting so that we would have?
But we moved it up
We
1 week.
moved it up,
We moved it
so-
up a week.
Normally, if we'd had our board meeting that last week, it wouldn't have been a problem.
I concur. I think we're so historical. We're almost doing an ad hoc report from last month because these are so old. If that's
Right.
if that's okay with Mr. President, we'll change it this time. Okay, we'll be ready.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, presentation of, working model?
No,
No?
Where are we?
the
Am I
appointment
off?
of an interim president.
Oh, interim president.
No, working model?
No,
Okay, and,
I think that's information only items.
okay, so, all right, okay, I got it, I'm sorry.
We're on tab E,
Abby,
number C.
Ándale. Okay, tab E, number C, we're just in the wrong place. Appointment of interim president. So we've already discussed that. Do we just need a motion then?
Mr. President, I move that we name Randy Grissom as interim president for an 18-month period, beginning today and continuing until August 1 of 2015, with the understanding that if he chooses to apply for the permanent presidency, we would consider him as an applicant.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. Look at that. Any discussion?
I would just like to, under discussion, I would just like to make that timeline clear about what the intention of the board is to have an interim president through August of 2015, but start a search process, a formal search process in January or February of 2015, leading up to the end of that interim appointment.
That's correct. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion?
aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And then that we will negotiate with you all the details of the contract.
Right. That'll be
And hopefully
happening.
vote on that contract
Yeah,
at the
before-
February 4th meeting.
Yeah, before next week. Okay, the motion passes.
Do you accept?
I accept.
All right. Congratulations, Randy.
Can I make just a quick statement?
Sure.
I just want to say that I'm both honored and humbled. This institution means a lot to me. We're a team out there, and I know that we've been working a lot together over the last couple of months, and we're going to move forward, and Santa Fe Community College is going to keep progressing. So I thank you, and I will work as hard as I possibly can.
Thank you. Okay, tab ED, we took that off of the agenda, so we'll move into the written reports only. We don't need to do that, correct? Does anybody have any questions on the written reports? No?
I actually think
We
that,
had a couple that we were going to, which ones?
I wanted to do I think you wanted to talk about the staffing and salary comparison, and wanted to talk about the graduation numbers.
All right.
so Brian, on the staffing one?
So, Brian, if you could just go quickly through what we talked about in the work session, that'd be great.
Sure. Let me get over there. Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, members of the board, again, just a very brief recap. It was my understanding from President Grissom that either in October or November, a question arose from the board about what was happening with salary levels during fiscal year 14, which is an understandable question because significant changes occurred between the May 1st HED budget that the board approved and we submitted and the mid-year budget adjustment request that President Grissom and I presented to the board and the board approved in December. So we put together a recap that was intended to convey a picture, and I will say at the most top-down level, the recap is significant for 2 reasons. One, because I believe what the recap indicates is that we accomplished what the board intended to do, which was to move resources into instruction and reclassify various employees. So I believe we accomplished that. Secondly, I think that what the recap indicates is that in general, yes, we have had increased salary levels, particularly on Exhibit 10 in instruction, and in Exhibit 18 internal services as we have ramped up our technology initiative. But in general, as we look back over two fiscal years actual reports, last year's budget, and then the mid-year bar for this year, in general, I think the board can take some comfort that I don't see anything in the report that indicates to me unplanned, out of control spending. And I want to remind the board as well that a few weeks ago in our December work session, President Grissom and I reported that we had spent a great deal of time with Budget Director Nancy Grabowski going in great detail through the exhibits in our budget, and we really had a good idea at the time that this report was put together of where our employees are, who we're paying, and what has changed. So with that bit of preface, let's look at this quickly. The three line items that are probably most significant in terms of change are Exhibit 10, our instructional exhibit, Exhibit 11, our academic support exhibit, and again, Exhibit 18, internal services. If you look at the bottom of the recap, what you will notice is that in full-time faculty, that we added 16 full-time faculty positions between the May 1st budget that was submitted and the mid-year bar. And then we have a small net change in regard to staff and part-time faculty. That change represents 70% of the increase in the Exhibit 10 in instructional faculty expense. The remaining 66% of the remainder is represented. Well, let me say that backwards. 70% of the increase is faculty salary. Of the remaining 30% is almost entirely retirement expenses related to faculty members who are retiring. I apologize for getting my thought backwards in my head. So 70% of the change, faculty salaries, increase in instructional faculty salary, and 30% related to retirement expenses. It's a very small portion of expenses in there that relate to other areas of the exhibit, but that represents, I would say, 97 to 98% of the change. Academic support, we have a substantial change, about $400,000+ between the May 1st budget and the fiscal year 14 bar. But I was pointing out to Dr. Romero earlier and Ms. Siegel that actually what we've done is restore it to our fiscal year 13 level. So the change here again, we made changes in the May budget that in essence what we have done is gone back and restore some of those funds. It's also important to note as we look at some of these areas, President Grissom and I reported at the December work session that one of the activities we were in as a result of various issues that came up during the audit is that we were reclassifying various employees to make sure they're in the correct place. And so that's one issue you may see with some of these increases here is that we simply move people who were somewhat off balance sheet to where they're fully represented in salary. As Ms. Siegel pointed out in December, of course, we were paying those people all along. That's why it's important that it be represented here so we can see it. And then finally, Exhibit 18, Internal Services, what you see between fiscal 13 actuals and the fiscal year 14 bar is that in essence, we nearly doubled our expenditure in that area. And as we discussed in December, that is because we are in the process of a significant technology initiative. Dr. De La Rosa in his area has added quite a few staff. These were planned additions, and these were additions that actually were probably planned, I would say, in advance of Dr. De La Rosa's arrival, but upon his arrival, we start operationalizing those changes.
But those are the conversions from contract to staff, employees.
Yes, but I want to point out, yes, and as we discussed at the December meeting, and it's important as a matter of record, I think it's just very important that we have clarity between board and administration about this issue. When the board approved these changes, which would have been for the May 14 budget, it is technically correct that of that approximately $1.2 million increase, about 600,000 to 700,000 of that will be recouped as we phase out consultants that we work with. What was perhaps not as clear, and I think for no reason other than it's a technical point, is that to realize the savings, we have to get through 2 full fiscal years. So our fiscal year 15 budget realizes the expenditures, fiscal year 16 will realize the savings, and I will finally stop fussing at Dr. De La Rosa about this as we conclude. I think in fiscal year 17, Chris and I will finally be getting along. But the point is, it's a long-range plan. We're in the process, Dr. De La Rosa and I are jointly overseeing a banner conversion process, for instance, where we have to have consultants to phase them out as we phase in new understanding within our own community of professionals of how we manage that. So this is the issue. This is why the net result of this will be about a $500,000 increase, but not this year. This year we're paying the full tab.
So on that point, right now we are paying the consultants and our new staff, and we will be phasing out the consultants?
That's correct.
In the fiscal year beginning July 1, 14?
Yes, our plan is we've actually made adjustments in the fiscal year 15 budget as we move through the process. This part of it we're able to project, and by the time the board sees it, you will start to see those changes. And what we're talking about, Ms. Siegel, is the concept of realization. To fully realize the benefit of the plan, we have this initial expenditure, then we phase out the part of the expenditures, and ultimately this will net down correctly. But it'll be January of next year by the time we're talking about the full net benefits.
Right. I don't know if I'm clear on this. Didn't we last year or the year before spend 600,000 or something on consultants, and are those the same people that were asking to consult us again?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. What actually occurred is the difference in the current situation and what we had in the prior few years is that we had for various operational reasons, and I want to emphasize that for both finance and OIT. It's a highly complex organization, a highly complex technology environment to make this all work. So we were using consultants in part because we needed support on the OIT side, but also because to make our very complicated software system operate with our finances, we really needed help to understand how that occurred. Now, the process that started in early 2013 was KC and her crew working with Anita Rainey and others from outside to figure out how exactly do we solve the problem. And then when Dr. De La Rosa and I arrived in August, we in earnest began the process of saying, what's our fix, how long is it going to take? And so we really needed this year our consultants to help us get a grasp on the problem. And one good thing I should say in deference to our SIG consultants, they are full participants in the phase out and have really helped us arrive at that. So we've made tremendous progress with it, and the plan, we are on target to accomplish what we're trying to do. My only preference about this is that I wish if I could go back and do a redo when this was presented to the board, it would have been very effective if the board had understood this is in effect a 3-year plan. We start now, we work through next year, we realize the benefit in the future. But again, I think it's just a technical observation.
Mr. Chair, just remind you, the savings will show up not in salaries. So the salaries have gone up, and the savings is going to be in the contractual line item, which is not on this page.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
That's where the savings will be.
Yes.
Thanks.
Right. Yeah.
If I could just make a couple of comments. I think the interesting thing to look at is at the bottom, we basically have 19 more employees than we had in FY12. So we really haven't grown that much. We have redistributed so that we do have more full-time faculty than we have growth in staff. That growth of 16 is not net new positions. Part of that is we reclassified some of our 12-month director positions into 12-month faculty positions. And then we hired about 10 net new, it's either 10 or 11, I can't remember, net new faculty, 7 of which I believe are permanent faculty positions, and 4 of which were one-year contracts that may, through the budget cycle, may become regular positions in next year's budget.
We have an increase on Exhibit 14 in deference to our facilities chief, Henry Mignardo, that we have a substantial increase there, but I'll tell you that was not Palm's fault, that was the accountant's fault, because we reclassified, as we talked in December, a fairly large group of employees to make sure that they were classified correctly. And in fact, having made that classification, this represents a little bit of a net decrease from where we were. Second page, just to be sure that I don't overlook this, the second page was prepared because last year there was some question about how to apply various levels of staff and faculty raises. And so President Grissom and I thought it would be good to lay out in a very simple format just some scenarios. These have not been built into the budget. They are strictly here for the board's consumption and awareness as we move forward. We don't know at this point what will come out of the LFC, of the legislative process in regard to budget. As I mentioned earlier today, the executive wants no significant state employee salary increase. LFC is a little bit more ambitious. They're at about 1.5%, which is probably high. So this chart is simply designed to say that for our employees in this public agency at our institution, if we had a 0.5% increase, here's what the effect would be. And then as you move over to the left, you just see that increasing. None of these are recommendations. They have not been built into budget. These will be a more salient discussion as we move toward a budget for the board to approve 2 months from now.
So just a quick question on the academic support category. What is that where the dean cuts would be reflected and the staff that were cut?
Yes.
Related to
Yes.
the support staff for the deans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the academic support includes the deans, includes all the support for contract training, continuing ed.
So with those cuts, why is there an increase of 20%? What is that?
We did hire some, and I can give you a list of that. We did hire some additional people in contract training who are bringing in the revenues to offset their salaries, but that's where they're budgeted. So we do have, I believe, 2 additional people in that area. This is also where grants management and is also. And we
But
didn't have
that's
that.
like it's almost for about a $380,000 increase, and some of that is grants. You think?
It's grants management.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is there are no grant dollars on this page. This is all institutional funds.
And it might also be worth noting in regard to budget processes that, again, just in an objective observation, because of circumstances at the time that the fiscal year 14 budget was prepared for the board in the spring, there were changes being made, cuts and increases, a variety of changes being made, that when the president and I and our budget director sat in and really line by line, I mean literally in President Grissom's office, line by line went through those changes. Some of them were things that were either deemed to be philosophically inappropriate. Some things were deemed to be, President Grissom would say, I just don't think that operationally that will work. And so one of the significant things I want to point out to the board is that we have year by year for the last several years, we have had some increased mill levy funds because these were projected very, very conservatively in the budget. And so in seeing these changes at mid-year in the mid-year bar, as we reported in December, and at the time we were projecting and needed this to be correct, and now we know we have actually received the funds. One of the things we've done actually is expand into the level of our actual appropriations. So that rather than coming to the board and saying, hey, this is great, we have $3 million that we didn't expect to have, what we've said to the board is we've corrected the budget and this is more fitting to the level of appropriation revenue that we expect to receive.
Well, certainly it's in line with the amount we spent in 2013, so we didn't really seem to save.
Mr. Chair and Board Member Siegel, actually we did make a cut because if you just added the 3% raise onto the 2013 level.
Yeah.
The 2014, the original version of the budget had made some assumptions that just did not happen. So.
Okay. And that our cost savings with long-term people leaving are worth about $1 million, which won't appear until 15.
Well, that's right, and that's one of the other kind of convoluted issues is that the process of moving employees into a different stage of life and retirement has the financial effect that we pay for that this year and realize the benefit in the coming year. Now, a great deal of this, I think, and Mr. President, correct me if this is too high certainty. I think that as we prepare the fiscal year 15 budget, this analysis rolled forward to fiscal year 15 will probably actually make more sense to the board because you'll see some of these netting effects, including the retirements. And I do think, as we discussed this afternoon, one top-down observation that President Grissom and I, when we saw this, when I sent him a draft of this, the immediate reaction to it is that by far the main bulk of increase here is what we intended to do as an institution. It benefits our students. The focus here is primarily on two things: academic support and instruction, and making sure we've got the technology to do what we do as a large campus. And so I think as far as the overall intention, the bottom line of this is, yes, salaries are increased. They are increased within a reasonable range. We can afford this year based on our current year revenues, and it accomplishes our overall mission, which I think was actually very gratifying to see that when we saw the analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? We're done.
Any questions? Great, thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Do the
graduation. Graduation. All right. Mr. Morimoto.
I hope someday we put you at the top of the agenda so we're not all drooping by the time you come tell us all this good data stuff.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. President, I would like to first thank the opportunity for presenting data. That's one of the most favorite part of my job, and I love doing that, so thank you so much. However, I am aware of how late the board meeting has been going, so with the board pleases, I could just focus on the highlights of the presentation. Would that be okay?
Mm-hmm. Great.
Okay, so the first item that I would like to talk about is the quick differentiation between graduation rate and number of graduates or degree production. Many times people talk about graduation rates, which are quite different from number of graduates and whether or not there was an increase in any previous year to this year. Meaning that the graduation rate takes a very small group of cohort, usually a first-time, full-time degree-seeking students, so that's around 12 credit hour students, and track them over 3 to 4 years for two-year institutions like ours. That's 150% or 200% our normal time for graduate. Whereas the number of graduates and degree productions, they talk about how many degrees did we produce or how many graduates we had in a given year. And so in this particular slide, it sort of shows our student demographics between full-time and part-time and degree-seeking and non-degree seeking students. So when you're thinking about graduation rate, you can really see that it really accounts for only 5% of the population and how well they're doing when they first come in. As many of you are aware, and many of our students would tell us, many students start off as a first-time, full-time students, but then they drop off to part-time, there are life situations, they leave the college, or perhaps they already have a degree somewhere else, they're coming here for a career change. So those students are not included usually in the graduation rates. And so focusing on graduation rates are really more of a 4-year measure than a 2-year measure. Looking at the number of graduates are usually what we focus on. And so I just want to make that point clear. If the next slide sort of shows the graduation rate for 3-year graduation rate for our institution, and right here you can see SFCC in the red color. Our most recent graduation rate in 2012-13, that's tracking them for 3 years. So, from 2010, 11, 12, that'll be the 3 years, is at 10%. So out of that 361 first-time, full-time degree-seeking population, the 5% of the population that started off at SFCC, 10% of them graduated within that very short time window. So the next slide really quickly just goes over where are we compared to all of our other two-year institutions. Generally speaking, over the past 6 years since 2006, so 7 years, 6 years, our average graduation rate, the unweighted graduation rate, was in the range of 8.7%, so we've been going up and down between 6 and 10, 11%. You could see in 2012, the most recent year, we were at the 12th of all the other institutions. Back in 2010, we used to be 9th. Okay? And my apologies for going real quickly about this, but I understand. So here is the 10-year perspective of our degree production by academic year. So you can sort of see the graduation has been progressively increasing over the years, also culminating with the increase in enrollments that was happening in 2008. And the next slide sort of shows a breakdown of where the graduate increase has been happening. From 2011-12, so for over the years, the graduation number has really increased significantly, and particularly last year, the biggest increase really happened in the certificate area at around 65% increase. An associate degree has increased roughly by 80 students. That brings it up to 26%. Overall, that brings it up to around 42% increase of total degrees produced. Okay. So one of the questions that was asked at the previous board hearing was, how many of these students actually are still enrolled? And actually quite a few of them are still enrolled, especially for certificate program for less than 1 year certificates. Many of these certificates that was produced last year are a result of the IBEST program, so students who are actually going through getting their high school equivalent diploma as well as the college degree at the same time, and then they're continuing their education. So whereas also less than 2 year certificates, but 1 to 2 year certificates really, we had 59% of the completers still enrolled for the fall or spring semesters. The question we're getting, and these students, faces significant challenges as they're trying to get their degrees. As you can see in this slide, a number of these students have required at least taking one level of developmental education prior to graduation. So where was the increase in certificate and associate degrees? It's actually in the area where there's actually the biggest demand for our community. Home health aid, nursing aid, phlebotomy, so these health areas, there's been a significantly projected workforce demand, and we are actually been meeting those needs of the local community. As well as also you can see the similar increases in associate degrees. I apologize for going really quickly, but I think, okay.
Thank you.
At the next slide talks about the age distribution. If you're interested about which group of population had a bigger increase, it's actually sort of spread across the different age group, which is always good to see. And this sort of goes into the whole issue of first-time, full-time degree-seeking population. If you do the graduation rate, they're usually 18 to 24-year-olds, right out of high school graduation. But you can sort of see here that these are people who are also older population who might not be included in that number that's shown here. So there are people who are coming back after years, perhaps second or third career. This slide talks about median number of semesters it took for students to graduate. Median, just as a friendly reminder, is the middle number. One of the reasons you use median for this kind of presentation is because there's usually an extreme on both sides. If you use an average, then it could be misleading one way or another. So you can sort of see what's been happening over the years. The next several slides talks about the ratio of whether or not how many years it's been taking for these students to graduate. You can see that it's been taking multiple years for students and a lot of hard work from the staff and the faculty member over the years to help the students to graduate. And I'm separating between the transfer students and those who started at SFCC because when they are transferred here, they actually bring in a lot of credit hours with them. Whereas if you start at SFCC, generally speaking, they're just starting from the beginning part all the way up to finish. And it's another important thing to keep in mind. It's not necessarily that many of these students end up taking multiple roles. Most students who start off here not stay as as full-time students. They go from full-time to part-time. There might be several years of absence between they come back to school, so it's important to keep in mind. All these numbers does not include summer semester for the purpose of the calculation because summers are sort of special. Some people do it, some people don't, so I didn't want to include that as a semester there. So I'm going to skip through these. And I just want to real quickly talk about all the good work that's been happening by our faculty and staff members. These people are just examples of many, 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 many people on this campus who worked hard last year to try to help people to graduate. Here are some of the strategies that they said they have done that they felt that was very helpful. And so I would like to now stand for any questions.
Good, quick job.
Yeah. And very helpful in helping us understand the difference between graduation rate and graduation numbers that increased.
Thank you.
And the number of years that it takes. I mean, I think one of the things that the public has a hard time understanding is the number of years that it takes our students to complete, and the continuous work that faculty do to get those students through, because it isn't a quick thing. And from my work with colleges across the country, one of the things that students tell us is that usually there's a faculty member or two with whom they develop a relationship, and that's what keeps them going, even when they're discouraged.
Yes, and that's actually one of the Gallup poll studies that talked about education and what keeps students in. That's with some of the staff or the faculty member who really connected with the student that makes the whole retention effort really work.
Right. Work.
And a quick comment. I know that we are working hard to reverse it, but I think that we also have to be honest with ourselves when we look across this chart. Even though there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the numbers are, the truth of the matter is the students who are coming to us out of high school or those first-time, full-time students, that we're only graduating 10% of them in 3 years, and we're talking about 2-year degree programs, so that's 150% of the time.
Yes, one of the biggest challenges, many of this, 87% of our first-time, full-time degree-seeking population require developmental education.
Right.
And so, collaborative work with our local high schools about talking about college readiness. There's a lot of, important good work that the faculty members and the staff members are doing about how can we help students be more successful in a faster time frame. There's a lot of good stuff happening on campus, but definitely, there's a lot of challenges that the students who come to our college faces.
And we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, yes, but we're ready for it.
We want something other than 10%.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'd just like to add a couple of comments. I mean, and Board Member Keith, you know about this from a grant we've worked on, but so many of our students to come here, life has not dealt them the best hand in some cases, and especially over the last 5 years with all the layoffs and the recessions and cutbacks, people have come here with the intentions. They start going full-time. They do have to do a lot of developmental work. But as we all know, life gets in the way. And so, we've been doing a lot of wraparound services to try to help improve and help those students where life does get in the way. We can't solve all their problems. We can match them up with resources. So I think a lot of the things we're doing, whether it be the iBest program, whether it be the first-year experience, whether it be, intensive and we call it intrusive counseling or coaching. We've been doing a lot of coaching. I think that's going to make some differences as we move forward. And it's, I'll go with Board Member Romero, and from Achieving the Dream, relationships have a lot to do with making people get through, but adding the 2 other R's of that new 3R, the relevance of the education, making it relevant to what they can do, and the rigor. We don't want to make it too easy, but if we ask our students and we provide those wraparound services, we can keep the rigor and still get them through. It's just not going to be in 3 years.
One of the things that students tell us in the Achieving the Dream schools, when you ask them what makes a difference to them or why they get discouraged and why they drop out, students tell us that we don't have high enough expectations of them. And that's a big surprise to most faculty and most staff. And then you probe with them when you do focus groups with students about why, how do we show you? We don't ever say you're not going to, we don't do the old thing of, the left and the right and 2 of you won't be here next year, whatever used to be the pattern in the big schools. But they say very interesting things. They say things like, well, a teacher might say to me, I know you might not get this, but try anyway. Or they say, this is really hard and most of you probably won't get it the first time. Or they have a whole range of comments that they tell us about how we say to them that we don't think they can do good work. And that has been an eye-opener to all of us. Because we always think that if we just treat them well, they'll come around. Anyway.
I have a concern of the dual enrollment students that we get. We're getting a lot of them, and we said that we're getting our increasing numbers. The thing that bothers me is a student. Some of the students I've worked with, they just, in high school it's a different thing, and it's a different credit thing and everything. But if they're taking dual enrollment courses, they might lower their GPA for college when they first come in, and it's so that's not happening, which is great. Yeah, that's a thing to me that I saw that with the lottery, and some of the kids that were, that they had taken dual enrollment, and they weren't as dedicated as in high school, and then when they come in for the lottery, they have a low GPA anyway, and so it's like that's what I worry about. But if it's not, if it's okay, then cool. It is. It's all right. All right, no sweat then. Never mind, as Linda Radner would say, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yash.
Okay. Cristobal de la Rosa, we have you, and you're going to be talking to us about SFCC technology policy. Is that 8-2? 8-2. Bueno. Nice haircut.
Gracias. Mr. Chair, Mr. President, members of the board, I'm here to present the draft policy 8-2, which is SFCC technology equipment replacement renewal. So this is a work of the Technology Council, and we at the Council would like to request guidance from the board through the adoption of this policy so that we have an organized and systematic way of replacing our technology infrastructure, particularly computers, both in the computer laboratories, the classroom, and the offices, so that we can avoid some of the things that we have experienced for this past year, like we have computers that are being used that were bought in 2004, which is like 10 years ago. And there are some computers now that we need to replace as well. And I think this is a good policy because we will involve the Technology Council in making a decision into prioritizing which computers needs replacement, so that this is more of a campus approach in terms of prioritizing our technology resources. The proposed policy also includes, in the event that there is no sufficient funds, the council would be able to prioritize based on need on campus which computers and which technology will be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. That was quick.
All right, we're going to have board reports or board comments. Martha?
I just have a very quick comment to make about the foundation board meeting last week. They were very pleased with the fact that they raised in the last month, in December, at the end of the year, about $122,000. So they were quite pleased with that intake. You'll have a bigger report. You'll have a full report from Deborah next month in our regular board meeting, so I'll just leave everything out. But the other one thing that I want to say is that faculty, staff, and administrators raised $10,000 in that month. So that's huge contributions from the internal community. And thank you.
Kathy?
I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that there is currently an opportunity to apply for a vacancy on the SFCC governing board. The process is anyone over age 21 and a qualified elector is the word, right? A voter and resident of the SFCC district is eligible to apply. Applicants need to submit by this Friday, January 31st, to Donna Wells here at the college. All the information is posted on the website. A letter of interest should be included, outlining the reasons for wanting to serve, a description of any prior board experience, and a statement of how you contribute to the SFCC board, a summary of other educational background and qualifications. It's the intent of the board to review those applications, to select 2 to 3 finalists, to interview those finalists, and to adopt a resolution at the February 18th board meeting, naming someone to serve until the next scheduled board election in 2015.
Is it appropriate to ask Donna how many people have already submitted or not? Maybe Lynn, you can tell me, is that appropriate to ask that? Okay, how many?
We've had about, I have the folder here, and I would say between 12 and 15 people have already.
Great.
Already? Well, that's positive.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Well, I have a comment, which is sort of school related, but I'm part of a Vietnam veteran group, and a very important thing that's going to be happening March 19th is that they're going to be bringing the replica of the Vietnam Wall to possibly Fort Marcy, and they want to make it a big media thing, a big student thing, and as a Vietnam vet, I don't think it's an issue of, I agree or disagree with what happened. I don't think that's the way it's being approached. It's being approached more in honoring these guys that died, and so I would, if there's possibility through certain classes, or if you have contacts through the elementary schools, or anything that would be like that, I think it would be a very positive thing. The 19th, which I think a Wednesday or a Thursday, to the Sunday, and also I've told them that we could even possibly. I work with a group called YouthWorks, and they're going to be probably volunteering to put the wall together, to be doing that. But I think that if you can think of things that your students might be involved in, or you in the organizations you might be members of that would want to come and participate. The Vet Center, you can look it up in the phone book or whatever. Please give them a call and let them know that you'd like to be part of it. Okay? All right, is there any other board comments or? Okay, so our next board meeting was going to be, we're going to have a special board meeting on the 4th next week, and then a regular board meeting on February the 18th. So now what we'd like to do is we'd like to go into closed session to discuss limited personnel matters, pending or threatened litigation.
I move we go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, she went. I'm sorry, I thought, okay, any discussion? Okay, motion passes, right?
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you all.